at 17 minutes past 8 o'clock in the United Kingdom. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is the 2nd of January 2024. Welcome to Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, live on 75W Radio, live on Ummah Connected. Tonight, we are talking unions and reunions, and a very interesting story to that. Well, welcome to the conversation. I thank you all for being part of the very interesting conversations we've been having here on this show. Uma Connected, I've had, as well as 75W Radio, is preparing the gifts packaged for the best audiences that are people that have stuck here with the program for the entire year, alhamdulillah. Second year, I think, running, or maybe the third year running. I might just easily have forgotten so quickly as time starts flying. But I want to take you through a very interesting conversation, two interesting conversations that I'm sure you might be able to have your own stories that relate to this. 25 years ago, I was just about to go on air when I was at Rwanda Television. I was one of the leading presenters. I don't want to say the leading, just in case it's misconstrued. But I was just about to go on air, and one of the assistants comes running and says, Kassim, sorry, there's someone here to see you. And I said, who is it? They said, well, this person is insisting they want to see you. And I walked out quickly to go and see this person who had this sense of urgency and, well, to sort of find out what it was about. Getting there, I'm accustomed by someone who tells me, hi, assalamu alaikum, my name is Hamida, and I'm your sister. This came definitely out of the blue. I didn't know how to handle myself in the circumstances there. I just said, yes, welcome. Who is your mom? You know, where I had a lot of questions to ask. I didn't have enough time to be able to ask the questions. But I just got a phone call. I just got my phone and just called my dad, who was in Uganda at that time. I was in Rwanda. And I called my dad and said, Dad, salamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. Kassim, how are you? I'm fine. I said, someone has come here and they tell me they are my sister. He asked me, what's her name? And I said, Hamida. He just said, Oyomanyoko. And that was it. There was no further explanation. Anyone who grew up with those dads from the 50s and 60s and 70s, you will appreciate that we did not have so much of a conversation around our parents. Those who did, you were very lucky. A lot of us started picking up conversations later on in life. And so it would be easy to speak to them. But it was not easy to speak to my dad beyond telling me, Oyomanyoko. And I turned to Hamida and I said, Dad says, you are my sister. And I'm happy that 25 years gone and we have lost total touch. And I couldn't even remember her. I would be lying if I said I could remember her. Through a Facebook conversation, someone who is a cousin to my sister comes and, we are friends on Facebook and says, yeah, but Kassim, we are friends, but do you know someone called Hamida? And I said, yes, I have Hamida, who is my mother's sister and therefore my auntie. He said, no, Hamida, your sister. I had to start scratching my head. She lives in Luxembourg, she tells me, and I'm at a loss. I said, honestly, I don't know. It doesn't ring a bell at all. One thing leads to another. Sandy or Sandra does all the formal introductions, gets in touch with Hamida, tells her, Giselle, you know what? I've found your brother, and he's happy to speak to you. Of course, her mom died during the genocide in Rwanda. My dad, or our dad, died in 2004, which is, well, some time back. So in between, she had had a time where she was just wondering where she could get her family, and she was feeling all this loneliness. And here I turn up out of the blue. The conversations that followed, because I said, Sandra, can you tell Hamida to call me? She said, no, she's shy. She said she's shy to call, but I'm going to call and then do a conference call so that the three of us can have a conversation. And what follows then, Sandra calls me. She lives in Belgium. So it is London, Belgium, Luxembourg. Hamida is all shaking. She's crying. She's shouting. She's so happy, absolutely happy. And whatever follows now, she starts asking me about dad, about, like all the stories, like catching up of 49 or 50 years of lost times. And for me, this was revelation. So I've started a new year with a new sister. Why don't I actually, probably just get her to, well, say salam to you people, because then I think it will add value. She doesn't love speaking English that much, but well, she promised me she might try. But it's a very interesting conversation. Hamida, do you mind unmuting, please? Sure, unmuting, please, Giselle. Can you unmute your microphone? Hello, Giselle. Ushura, can you unmute, please, your microphone? Ushura, unmuting your micro? Ya, uratusha kuri iyo button ivuga unmute. Ivuga unmute. But if you can see, that's my sister on the screen. That's Hamida. Yeah, no, you can touch. Hari buto aho ngaho ya unmute. Ningusaba ku unmuting, you just unmute. Yeah, just try and see. Ukritse kuri unmute irahita ifungura niba ubasha kunyumva, ariko nta mikoro ufite deja. Uranyumva neza? Byibuze uranyumva, ushobora gusinyara ko unyumva. Okay, some problem. Well, that's okay. So navuga nti ugerageze uklike kuri ntuza kuri unmute. Hari buto ya unmute aho ngaho. Reka nongere nkohereze turebe. Let me just try and see again. So ngiye kongera ngusabe ku unmutinga, nubona ije unmute right to click. So click aho ngaho rero. So click aho nakoreje kuri unmute. Ndumva ishobora kuba yafungura. Oh, it's impossible. And is there any way that that host can unmute her? Normally, she would have to click it.
She's also a co-host. It would be easier if he just takes her thing, Kasa, and just click on the mic itself.
Okay.
To be easier.
So, Giselle, ushobora kugerageza ugaklika deja directement kuko ushobora kwiunmutinga, ntabwo ari ngombwa ko unmutinga. Ukliritse kuri mikoro gusa ukureho ya son kuba itariho, birashoboka yuko wahita ubasha kuvuga. Let me hope she's not dropped off trying to. All right, she's still there. Hari elema ya mikoro urebye kuri ekara ufasheho, hari akantu ka mikoro hasi uklitseho gutya karahita ka unblockinga deja. Ubu ukuyeho video, ariko hari akandi ka son. Well, in the meantime, as Hamida tries to...
You can tell her as she clicked on the video to come on video. It's the same way she can do on the mic. If you can explain that to her.
That's what I've tried to explain, but it looks like it's difficult. Was I using French? Yeah, okay, let me just try saying, probably she might be able. So, Giselle, yabuto urimo guklikaho video ikaza cyangwa ikavaho, aho ngaho neza niho hari na button ushobora guklika ya ntuza hiti izana son, ikuraho son cyangwa kuyizana. Deja ni ka micro ubu ukabona, then kariho cursor ikuraho ijwi cyangwa kuyishyiraho. So wagerageza in the meantime, ndaba nkomeje n'ikiganiro ubwo ubasha kumva uklikeho ngaho urahita unblocka deja kuko uri co-host. Okay, so well, what follows then is a very interesting conversation. We get a three-way conversation, laughter.
Maybe you can just call her on a normal call, so that we can hear the story. I think it can also help.
Or like a WhatsApp call.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try. So Giselle, ngiye kuguhamagara kuri WhatsApp. Ubwo bishobotse maybe wabasha kuvugiraho kuko hano so ubwo yanze kandi at least babe bakumva ijwi, then washyiraho video kameme. Ubwo ndumva ari nta kibazo. Ngiye kuguhamagara deja. Okay. Let me try that. It's old technology. And Jaden is just joined us. Uma connected in Muraba na yari mukasonda. Is that Usama or Zaid? It might be, I hope it's not the same phone that she's using for the communication. Might have left it for her. Hello, Giselle, are you there? Oh, well, I think I'll just not allow the time for us. We're losing too much time on that. Hopefully we'll come back to that. Okay, so basically, after finding this sister who has not been a part of our life, there was a lot of learning to go through. And I thought this might make a very interesting conversation here on our Come Let's Talk. How do you deal with a situation like that? Have you had a situation where probably, someone has come into your life and you have to, Ustad, I've got your message there. I can see you, I think, in the dark. How do you contend? Because sometimes if it is a situation where father has died and you've come to share property and there's all of this, maybe you start worrying. But this was the story of a person who is coming in, and the kind of welcome, the kind of reception that she receives, I think it would be best even to hear it from her own side, to sort of say how it felt, because on my side, she didn't expect probably to be received in the manner that she was. And we start having conversations. Then what follows is I go to the family WhatsApp group. Our dad left 32 children. About 26 are still living now. And then I start sending on the WhatsApp group, telling them, guys, we have a new one. I've found a new one. And the name had been mentioned. So dad had mentioned the name. And when dad died, even when the distribution of wealth was being done, her name was mentioned and her property is still there in the village. She's yet to go and claim her property. So she's essentially well protected in that essence. And so we start talking about dad, about these stories. And I wondered, in a situation where someone is just brought in, assume dad was still alive and had brought her into the family, what would be the reception? How would people perceive? How easy is it to integrate? She's been married, she's got 5 children. I've got 6 children. So it's really a situation of how do you start getting these cousins and nephews and nieces, getting to meet one another. There's a lot that we need to unpack now that needs to go into this conversation. It's just Luxembourg where she is. So it's close by. You would imagine that was a story now that we can get the ball rolling. How do I get it to my sister, to my wife, for example, now to prepare her? I'm saying there is family, there's new family. There are all these conversations that, would be interesting to sort of see how does it pan out. And the excitement then now begins. So for a new year, you begin this, and I thought, I'm sure one of you will have a story that is kind of similar, probably different. It might be a different reception, but it's there. But there's also the other part. My late grandmother gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. That is my dad's mother. The third born leaves Uganda in mysterious circumstances, goes and ends up in Congo, gets lost, no communication whatsoever. For the entire life of my grandmother's life, she was crying, sort of saying, will I ever see my son again? He became a Yusuf of sorts, disappearing for actually nearly 40 years. It was about 40 years. He had disappeared, there was no clue whatsoever, not writing a letter back home, nothing. My dad, trying to appease her mom, embarks on a journey into Congo, where he had gone severally, working with Belgians as a mechanic and, during the colonial rule, and becoming really seriously Congolese, that in a lot of ways, our firstborn, actually, our eldest sister, was born in Congo. She's Congolese. Up to now, she's from a tribe called Batuku, which is on the Uganda-Congo border, comes from the royal family. There is all of this. And you have to contend with all of this. I only got to meet her about 3 years ago. That was the last time I got to see her. And that was the first time that I had actually got to see her. She lives down in Toroko, again, near the border with Congo. But that's a different story. Dad goes on a hunt, that takes him close to 16, 17 years of searching, of doing his groundwork. He was very good in his intelligence work. Dad ends up finding his brother, a lost brother, a brother that didn't even know how to make his way back home. Everybody had forgotten about Tata Nuru, to the extent that even if you came into our family now and asked Tata Nuru, they would tell you, Muzaire, are you looking for Tata Muzaire? He's Congolese by all aspects. He married a Congolese wife, comes back with children that spoke only Swahili and then Lingala. Totally Congolese. I mean, and this is my dad's real brother. After 16, 17 years of searching, after 16, 17 years of searching, my dad bumps into his brother and he pleads with him to come back home. Tata Nuru Muzaire ends up returning to Uganda. It was like a rebirth. It was someone like who had died and suddenly resurrected. It was fun. It was very memorial. A huge party was laid out. And this is not a film I'm talking about. This is inside my own family. Now, to see Hamida Giselle appearing now in a time when, like family has moved on, people have grown up, and you have to contend with this. Tata Nuru comes back to Uganda. He manages to live another 14 years, I think 10 to 12 years, and then dies in Uganda. His mom had died before that, but she died a very happy woman that her son, Yazauka, he had been resurrected and managed to come back home. Now, as a family, how do you reunite? Nuru, Tata Nuru, came back into the family. He had no language of communication. It was difficult to communicate. This happened with Hamida because the moment Hamida comes in, I start connecting her with the siblings. And she can only speak French, Kinyarwanda, and a bit of English. And the challenge then was, how do I speak to them? Suddenly I turn into a translator who has to transmit information between this side and the other side. I hope I'm not boring you with my family story. But I'm hoping that there is something that you can pick, especially coming from polygamous families, especially Muslim families. These are stories I'm sure you have had endless times where someone comes to you and, comes to have this conversation. And in tonight's conversation, I'm already seeing Twaha Muchibi. I wonder whether he has a story, but he doesn't have a mic on. Wana Twaha, assalamu alaikum. I recognize your presence into tonight's conversation. Your mic is not on, so I don't know whether you are able to hear us or you will be able to actually contribute. But the moment I posted this onto Facebook, it actually got a couple of people thinking and talking. And before I opened the mics to you, I was still trying to get Giselle to be able to say at least assalamu alaikum to you people, and I hope will be at some point. But the story went crazy on Facebook, and one of the reactions came from Abdurrahim Babazi, who calls himself Miskinullah, and he says, after searching for years, he finally found his dad. Expected open arms and joy, but the father just coldly asked him, now what? Oyagarachi. Ebyaddirira. Now osobola okufiiringa in the gaps. Naye abasajja tetwali kutte ku zip if we don't have a strong intention to stay when stuff happens. Nze ngenze n'okugenda. This was someone that was actually sort of giving one side of the story. And the other bit is how I want you to put yourself in Giselle's position. You've come into a family that you have not been before, and you have to be introduced to people. The pressure, the tension. There are children that grow up with their mothers because their mom went away and lived with them. Either the father impregnated the mother and then denied responsibility, and for years the child doesn't know, or it was probably a one-night situation. Man goes away, doesn't know anything. Woman ends up pregnant, gives birth to a child, and then years down the road, someone is pushing the mother or father to think, to bring them over to the family. I want to see my dad. I want to see my dad. That pressure pushes the person now to bring this child and introduce them. I'll tell you one more before I open the microphones for your comfort. I come from a family of herbalists. So Bagabi Dagara Mitishamba. And you would have hundreds, if not thousands of people coming for treatment for different ailments. Chigarango, failing to conceive. There are lots of issues, cancer, there would be pressure and all of that. My family, without a doubt, is one of, I would say, one of the best herbalists. And this I say without a shade of doubt, because I've seen, especially my dad, in his many travels through Kenya, through Tanzania, through the forests of Congo, gathered a lot of medicines, herbal medicines that treated many, many people. So a person, a lady would come, they appear on a day, alikuwa appointment, she comes in the morning, comes in with a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old boy or girl, just normal consultation. So the kid can't go there in the consultation room with the mother. Go and play with your friends. And the mother goes for consultation, receives medication, blah, blah. After she finishes that, lady walks out and walks away comfortably. This is how your brother or your sister has been introduced into the home. Lunchtime, everybody sits around to eat. Mzee comes, sits down. Assalamu alaikum wa muganda wamwe. Just like that. And there were not one, there were not two. I remember several that were introduced into our uncle's home, just like that. Is this a situation that probably you can relate with? I would like to hear you. The program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. We are live on 75 W Radio. We are live on Ummah Connected, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. Have you had a relative, a sibling that has been brought into the family and introduced? How were they introduced into the family? I would like to hear. You as a person who was introduced, what went through your mind as you got introduced? Was it a nice welcome? Imagine you are the father who has just been told you have a son or a daughter. She's 14, 15, 16, or he is, and you'd never seen them. Probably you had no idea they were even there. In Muslim families, it may be easy to explain. In Christian families, there might be a lot of explaining to do, especially the consideration that the man is just married to one wife till death doth them part. To realize that suddenly you're in a situation where you have to, explain yourself. How do you explain this? Because if you are dead, probably there's very little explanation to do. The mothers will come, they start crying so much at the wake, and then this is your son, he's also a son of the late. But this is the situation we are talking about now, where this person is still living and a child has been brought. How do you contend? How do you break the news to your wife? Welcome to Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. Well, I'll just open the microphones now. I'll try to see if Giselle is available by any chance. I would have liked her to give salam to the audience. Giselle, are you by any chance there? Giselle, ushobora uhari? Wagerageza ugashyiraho video turebe niba bishoboka kuba twakubona, please. There is Didier Dako who is trying to connect a lot of times, but I think he's having problems as well. Would be good to see. Now, oh, yeah. So, it's coming through. I think that's Giselle's son.
Thank you.
Yeah, suddenly, we have. Okay, thank you very much for joining us. Oh, it's going off. Oh, dear. Okay. Ni karibu sana, Hamida. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Will you try your English? Or
Un peu.
un peu.
Non, French ou bien Swahili.
You want to speak Swahili? Oh, well, Swahili might be actually much more understood. Yes. Say Swahili. Jaribu Kiswahili. Karibu sana Giselle.
Asante sana. Na mimi nafaona.
Asante na mimi. Nafurahi kuona finalement, naona tunaonana ana kwa
Yeah,
ana.
mimi pia.
Okay, labda sasa watazamaji wangependa sana kujua kwanza, Sandra alipokupigia simu anakuambia nimempata Kassim, kwanza ulisikiaje? For the audience that doesn't understand Swahili, I'll try to translate for you as Giselle explains. Yes, go ahead please.
Yeah, nimefurahi sana. Kasamba amenipigia simu ananiambia kama kakangu amempata. Wakati nilimpigia nimefurahi sana, ilikuwa miaka mingi sana siwaone, siwajui.
Yeah.
Anifanyizia furaha nyingi nyingi nyingi.
Amen.
Hata leo niko happy kuongea na mweye, kujua familia.
Yeah. Sasa kwanza ile kujua kwamba manake ulikuwa unajihisi namna gani siku zilizopelekea hapo, manake kuwaza kwamba familia kwa baba yako ni kama familia ya mama yako walifariki kwenye genocide, alafu familia ya baba yako hauna contact.
Sikukuwa na contact hata kidogo. Lakini grâce à Facebook Sandra alieseye kuwatafuta, amewapata hivi. Nafurahi kuwaona hivi, utawajua a partir yako.
na je, lugha unasikia utafanyaje kuweza kucommunicate, kwa sababu kuna hiyo probleme deja barriere ya langue.
Ya langue il faut apprendre. Napasha kujifunza Kiganda, napasha kujifunza anglais, voilà.
Yeah, also for the non-Swahili speakers, that's my newly found sister, Hamida Kaira. Giselle was very excited because, like I said, for those who have just joined us late, Hamida, we got in touch. We got to see or know Hamida through her cousin, Sandra, who we are friends on Facebook, and she just brought a line and said, you know, I'm related to your sister. And I'm thinking, which sister now? Suddenly, we end up with Hamida coming into the family. Sasa labda audience wangetaka kujua hivi unajitayarisha namna gani kuweza kuona familia? Deja familia ni grand famille, ni familia kubwa. Unajitayarisha namna gani? Huko nasikia huko excited. Watoto umewaambia, watoto wamesikia aje wakati una nini?
Mwezi wa 8 sisi wote tuko tunashuka Uganda. Familia yote.
Hamida has already made plans that we are traveling to Uganda in August for her to go and meet the family now for the first time. Yes. Lakini sasa kwa watoto wako umewaeleza, umewaambia familia yangu nimeipata, wamesema aje, wamesikia?
Wamefurahi sana, wanataka kujua wenyewe uko hapa Angleterre.
Oui.
Ni kusema kama Mungu akisaidia tutashuka sisi wote, tutaanza kwanza tuende Angleterre.
Oui.
D'abord kwenda kuona kwanza Kassim na familia yake, after tuke Uganda.
Asante sana. Basi wacha nikuache kwa sababu nafurahi sana. Didier uko naye, ni mtoto wako?
Oui, ni wa kwanza.
Wewe Didier?
Yeah.
Come. So that's one of the sons. Hamida has 5 children. I've never seen any of them. I've seen them on photos.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the firstborn. Didier, comment?
Bien.
Hi, everybody. Fine.
Hello there. Oh, you speak English. Well, that's good to have you then. At least we. Yes, Didier, how did your mom communicate to you about finding her, well, long lost families going through me?
For me, it's a surprise. So she told me on this small brother, the big brother. So I don't know who we talk about. So she's very happy to see her big family. So for me, it's very. So
are you happy for her?
Yeah, of course, because we don't have a chance to know the family of his Uganda, the father, my grandfather. Yeah. I don't see him, so he died. I don't know I have 1 year still. I don't know.
Siku nyingi. Baba amekuja huko Didier alikuwa na miaka 3. Yeah.
And so I'm little long boy, so
yes.
Now I'm happy.
Are you excited? Are you looking forward to seeing? Well, you have so many cousins. I mean, you have to be ready. You have so many aunties, so many cousins, and you must be ready for that. It's coming.
Yes, of course. I'm certainly sad to come see you and your family in Angleterre, but it's very very pleasure. You have the big family, so it's very,
Okay, Didier, very well. We look forward to seeing you, and I wish I had alerted the boys. They would have come into the conversation at least to get to see you.
okay.
It's
Fine.
really very nice. But I'm going to establish. I'm going to open up chaîne de communication so that you can start having at least contact with them. That should start preparing that.
Okay,
Thank you
very
very much.
good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Okay.
much. Very
Yes,
much. Thank
Hamida, asante sana kabisa. Merci, hein.
Yeah, okay. Alors, mi nawacha basi.
Okay, tunashukuru sana kabisa.
Yeah.
Utaendelea kuwa unafuatilia kipindi tu, usikilize watu wengine, kwa sababu deja watu wako na mahistoria hapa ya ajabu ajabu. Unaweza ukafikiria wewe uko na maajabu, unasikia wengine, kwa sababu watu wako na historia, especially nini famille musulman zinakuwa ziko na vitu vingi. Utasikia watu especially hizo stories za kuwa
Mm,
la première fois
Intéressant.
approach ndio kuweza kuongea na mtu deja, il y a beaucoup de choses, so ubakie hapo amfast, tafadhali usikilize.
Okay.
Okay, merci.
Yeah.
Right, thank you very much. Well, for those who cannot hear the language, I was just speaking to my sister there. And well, talking about, well, we've seen the son, Didier, who was very excited to be, getting a big family now. And I don't know, I think I would love to hear your own take on this. Hajat Sir, I'll just bring you in straight away just to get us talking, and especially your reaction to this conversation, hearing what you've heard from and seeing my sister. How was that for you?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It is a very happy reunion with you and your sister and her family, and it just kept me smiling here. And I wish I could have done that. Well, as you already say that some of us have had our dads bringing children who are older than us, some are younger than us. For me, when it happened to me, I've got more than 6 siblings that came, that joined us as adults, and it
6
wasn't a
siblings,
problem.
did they come at once? Were they brought
Well,
in at
no, one at a time they would come. One day you come home and there is a child, and they say that is your brother, that's your sister. It never bothered me. We welcomed them wholeheartedly, and we're so happy to see them. The challenge I had is when things turned around and it was me married and children were coming in.
Yeah.
For those that my husband fathered before marrying me, I didn't find it a problem. I received
Sarah,
them.
do you mind getting your video also at
Oh
Giselle?
no, Sheikh Kassim.
Where you are, you're not
I'm
comfortable.
lying down in my bed and I'm
Okay, no, it's perfectly fine. I just wanted to give reassurance to Giselle to feel that this is a
Okay.
conversation that we have with real people. It's not made up people.
Sorry
But if
about that. Next time I'll be more prepared.
we'll respect that. No, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, so what I was saying is when I got married, my husband brought in a few children, and some of them were disguised, like they were not his own children, but they were his brothers. Or he would call them that, oh, this is my brother's child, but they were his real children. I think he was really worried. You've got, women had a tendencies of dropping children anywhere to their sisters or maybe moms, and then the husband had to bring them home. So I had a few that came in, and it was so surprising that their husband would say that this is my brother's child, and the child would this is my daddy, and I couldn't make sense of it. And I was like, maybe
which they can get away with in an African sense, because tata, you can't say.
No, not daddy in that sense. It was actually the boy was saying that this is my actual dad.
No, what I'm
and
saying
he's
is
my father.
you could have easily forgiven them, because in an African sense, a tata, but like all of them would be tata. You don't call them koja.
Yeah, but that did
So
bother
probably,
me. I was like, okay, it doesn't matter who you are. You're a child and I'll look after you. And I was quite happy to look after them. So I had 3 of those. But then the ones he had, we were married. Those really bothered me. And
Yes.
for me, it was like these children whom my husband has fathered outside wedlock, they could have even broken my marriage. It wasn't the kids that I was really angry with, but the mistresses that he could have fathered the children with. And I said, if I keep on accepting these children, this man is going to take me. I mean, maybe he'd take it for granted that he can bring children anytime he wanted. And he had lots of boys and a few girls. So it so happened that the last one he came home was a girl child. And we had really few girls. I had one and a few from his former marriages too. So my little daughter was so happy to see this little girl come home. And she even made a bed for the child, but I was determined for this child not to be in my house because I was like, if I keep on accepting these children, I'm like giving him the liberty to bring in children whenever he fathers them, and I really had enough.
How old was that last girl?
The poor little girl was like 3 years, and my daughter was 6. And it was painful for me to really put my foot down and say to him, you know what, you take this little girl back. Or if you don't take this little girl back, I'm packing. Probably you bring the little girl and her mom, and they look after even my own children because I've had enough. And then the poor little girl was crying, and my daughter was like, Mommy, don't let this little girl go. I want my little sister. And I said, No, I'm sorry, you're not going to have your little sister here. So I suggested to him that, you know what? Could you please find a plot where you can build a house for one of your sisters? So that we had one sister who was always working for us and who could be anywhere if the brother said so, and get that a house for this little child and put that sister of yours there to look after your child. You can even bring as many as you want, but don't give them to me anymore. I'm sorry, I can't do it. So that gave me some contentment. I was like, okay, I've not really sent this little girl away because for me, the children were never to blame. It is the adults who did whatever they did, but the children were always innocent. And if it wasn't for me saying now I can't do it anymore because I already had my own two, and then I had already raised 7 from one marriage of his and another 3 from his own marriage. And then I had the 3 other ones from wherever.
Someone is
like, no,
shocked.
no, no.
Someone is asking in the chat room,
Yeah,
some of us can't handle foolishness. Were you too kind, probably, for your own good? You think?
Well, there is always, I lost my mom when I was 12. And I also grew up with my stepmoms. And I was like, they treated me so well. They looked after me. And this is the least I can do to give back because sometimes stuff happen and it's never something you can blame to the children. So if these stepmoms of mine came in and didn't look after me well or didn't like me or treated me badly as I used to hear from other children when we were in boarding school, I would have felt so bad and I wouldn't have been happy. And with that spirit, and I knew that anyone can grow in someone's home because we even had other children who did not belong to our family that were sometimes orphans that we had in our home when we were growing up. So it was a normal thing to do. It wasn't a problem until when I thought that now I have to put my foot down and say no more because it was like I was giving my husband the leeway to keep on fathering and bringing me children. And I couldn't do it anymore. I also married him when I was a young girl, and it was getting a bit too much for me.
Was he apologetic? Was he apologetic at all whenever he brought these children, or would he just bring
Well,
and jump and
for
just?
him, he was even fearful to bring the children. He'd never brought them himself.
Yeah.
Like I said, the moms of these children dumped them to maybe his sisters, his stepmoms, and those family members brought the children home. And that's why he used to deny them because he knew that it could even be a cause to break his marriage. If I didn't accept these children, I might decide to leave. I never wanted it.
So
But
who
then with
brought
the
them?
little,
Was it the sisters? Was it the
yeah, well,
brothers?
the one was brought up by one of his the wife of his uncle, whom he called Mama, Ngabutwaita Mama, and 2 were from his sisters. and one was dumped by the mom at our business, our place of work. And in the morning, found a little boy there, and I had to take him on. They never bothered me, those, because they were older. Like I said, they were older, and he had fathered them before marrying me. I was like, okay, those were his mistakes. And I was like, maybe we'll learn from that and never have any more children. And we'll just stay contented in our marriage. But sometimes men do whatever they do, not that they intend to father, but then it also comes out as a result of whatever you do. So that's the story that's what I can
No,
contribute on that.
That's pretty strong. And I wish I could find any of these children for them to talk about the kind of reception that they received. Maybe they were actually very young in that sense at 3
Yeah,
years,
well,
4
we
years old.
grew up together and we were very, very happy and very tight. And I can assure you that on the first, that was yesterday, most of them have come to the UK now. We had a big family reunion, and I met all my grandchildren from them. I'm not saying that they were all outside wedlock. I'm talking about those from his previous marriage. Yeah, the first wives he had, because they also grew up within my house. So we had a big meal and were so happy. And I met most of my grandchildren because some of them have just come to the UK, some have been here. We were together, then we parted ways, as in everyone getting busy and not seeing each other for quite a bit for some time. But it was quite happy. I still love them to bits. They are my children. Even those little ones who I sent off to be with their aunties, I still supported her. I would go take stuff, look after the children, and whatever they needed, I tried my level best. Even when their dad passed away, they were still my children. Yeah.
Hajat Sarah, I can tell you are a woman and a half. Laila Kadu here is singing.
This is
You
Dunia
need a
Shekeke.
gold medal. It's not a gold medal. No, it's a gold medal. But where is the Kwame Yule saying
Yeah.
Laila, let me just bring you in. Hajat Sarah, Barakallahu Fikum. Let me just bring in Laila when it is still hot. That was a very, very good experience. Hajat Sarah, you are never short of stories. Just like Kaspa was telling me, I'm never out of any story. You find relevance in any situation. Leila Kadu, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, Leila. Leila went to the chat room. She's scared of coming in, or she's just shy. Okay, let me go to Sheikh Abdullah Dumba, because listening into this as a man, and I'll tell you, Hajat Sarah, listening into this as a man, the way any man would struggle if you have a very well listening and loving wife, to just drop in children, but using the expertise of using others to sort of be able to, bring the children home. That's always another easier trick. The aunties are always the tough ones. They will find ways of bringing children in the home and manage to get away with it. Sheikh Abdullah Dumba, if you are there, are you free to speak, or you're just listening in? If you're not, barakallah.
Thank you so. Thank you so. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much, Kayira. Keke another Kirunda Kivejinga is now Kassim Kayira. But all your topics are very, very much interesting and informing. I'm glad you have responding positively. Ideas.
Your line is crackling. Your line is crackling. It's we cannot hear you very well. I don't know if you're on the move or in a basement.
Yes, I'm walking. I was gonna ask you to allow me a few minutes. Let me listen in, and then I'll come in later, inshallah.
But now it's actually better as you're about to excuse yourself. Suddenly, it just got better. Let's have you while we still can, and then you can come back in case it gets worse. But it was clearing up as you spoke.
Because I decided to stop and not move an inch.
Barakallah. We owe it to you on that. But listening to Hajat Sarah and my own introduction, which I'm sure you did listen and saw my sister as well, I would like to get your own take on this.
Sheikh Kayira, again, I'm saying that this is very interesting. Very, very much interesting, because you are hitting the nail, into the Omutogo Nyini Nyini, because a lot of people have gone through this, but people don't want to talk about it. I for one have not gone through such an experience whereby my own kids have been brought to introduced to my wife or either to my family yet. But I know I do have kids from different mothers, and I know how taskful it is for me.
Oh, the line is gone dry again. Okay, Sheikh Abdullah, I think there is justification now to give you a few minutes. Please let us know once your line clears. Once you are in a much clearer situation, then we'll come to you, inshallah. Thank you very, very much. Laila Kaddu, I come back to you because, again, you are hot on your heels with anger about Laila Kaddu, it looks like you didn't come from a situation like that. Sister Laila, are you there? Oh, yeah, Rabbi. Okay, let me try somebody else here. No, Umma connected. Ustad was there, just hiding in there. Ustad, let me come to you pretty early. You always hide away and come very late into the conversation. I'm tempting you now. Ustad, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Or are you tied down as well? Hey, subhanallah. People are remaining in Kamode. Kangendewa Haji Kassim. And Giselle, since you can't hear, because I like Haji Kassim's stories, but I like them brought in a language where he just pours. Muruganda. Haji Kassim, salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wearing.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wearing. You just say.
A story because one last week when we were in the conversation wayogera ku muto wabadde amaze emyaka 20 nga talabanga ku maama we n'amala n'asobola okuba nti agenda n'alaba ku liiso lya mukadde essanyu eririwo ono yayitira bula bubuzi naye ebbanga eribadde liyiseewo ng'olaba nti there is that disconnect naye given nti ova mu family Islam probably waliwo connection already ekyali kiwaddeko muzeeyi n'aleeta abaana awaka ne banjula bwanjuzi nga bamaze okutuuka nkakasa olinaku experience ku topic y'olwaleero
wallahi nyingi nene nnyo ow'erinnya nze simanyi bw'olonda ogamba buli kiseera olina engeri gy'otukwatamu n'owulira nze amaziga gampiseemu nga mwannyoko oyo atweyanjulira kubanga ekifaananyi
sokoleke nkyogera akiwulire ndeka nkyogera akiwulire Giselle ndabizi kunyumva bwingo wagiye kuvuga mu kigande kugira ngo kamem deja abashe kwisanzura neza so aravuze ngo yariza amarira abona igihe wari urimo kuvuga wisanzuye wishimye ko wambonye sebo genda mu maso
kubanga sebo ekintu cyo
ça fait plaisir.
ekigambo ky'okujoining okugatta eŋŋanda nze kirinako story empitirivu nze taata waffe yatuzaala tuli abaana 12 naye twabeerawo ebbanga ddene nga tetulabanga ku senga waffe tetulabanga ku taata tetulabanga kugamba nga tuwulira story kati nga bw'omanyi abaana taata netumuteekako akayinja netumugamba naye taata ddi oli tuleetera ddi ku ssenga kati luba luli olwo oba omusajja nga bw'omanyi ndowooza n'ajjukira n'akubamu ka maapu ng'ayina mwannyina gwe yaleka eyo mu nsozi esayidi z'emukono eyo Ssugu n'agenda amunoonya muzeeyi yakeera bukeezi teyatugamba n'atambula olw'epuresha gye twali tumutaddeko nga tugamba taata leero teffe tetulinayo ssenga tetulinayo jjajja naye bwakya bukya muzeeyi n'akeera n'ateeka ebigere mu ngato n'agenda tetwamanya ffe yatugamba nti kankomewo n'agenda n'amala ennaku ndowooza zaalinga 4 oba 5 nga talabikako ne tunoonya muzeeyi kumba ali mu lusozi eyo waggulu eyo anoonya afeffetta okukakkana nga muzeeyi agudde ku mwannyina eyasigalawo baali 4 ababiri baafa oyo mwannyina yali asigaddewo n'amulaba naye Kayira nkubuulira muzeeyi bwe yakomawo essanyu lye twalina buli omu yanaaba buli omu yeetegeka tugenda kulaba ssenga tugenda kulaba ku ssenga era yoyo ssenga gwe nagambye eyafudde nga siriiyo ne kimpisa bubi nnyo naye kwegamba essanyu lye twalina sheekhe nga batugambye nti owange ssenga wammwe yazuuse buli omu yakeera ku makya ne twetegeka minibasi ne tugireeta ne tugenda ebyo nno mu sheekhe wala eyo bayitayo bukunja eyo nze situukanga nayo sirabanga nayo naye kwegamba essanyu taata lye yaleeta omukwano gwe yaleeta mu famire senga okusinga n'abaana be okusinga na bba wa senga kati olwo ekintu ne kyedomola buto so n'olwekyo ekintu
nzikiriza Kassim mumala okuvunulira Giselle n'abatamanyi Luganda nabo nsuubira abasigadde Oluganda baluwulira so nja kuvunula buvunuzi wa Giselle nja gatta Olunyarwanda n'Oluswahili probably that might make it much easier. Giselle niba unyumva ndabizi kunyumva uyu nguyu aravuze yitwa Haji Kassim nawe buje izina aravuga ko bavutse ari abana 12 ariko papa wabo bakajya bibaza ko nta wundi muryango wose agira batangiye kumushyiraho pression bamwotsa igitutu deja biba ngombwa yuko atangira papa wabo yazindutse umunsi umwe batazi ibyari byo aragenda mara hafi 4 jours 4 au moins 5 jours arimo guhiga ashakisha mushiki we bavutse ari abana 4 babiri barapfa asigarana umwe mushiki we ajya kumushaka ahantu kure bamaze iminsi 5 nawe se wabo batamubona imitima ihagaze kandi yari iminsi amatelefone atari yagaragara aza kumubona mushiki wamubonye ararira biracika aza kumwintroduza muri famille ubwo urumva kujya gufungura imiryango ibiri yose ibyabaye bateguye ubukwe biracika nyine barambara bararimba barakaraba binjira imodoka bajya gusura uwo shangazi wabo nyine byahinduye amateka ya famille kuko certainement bahise babona famille yagutse nyine nyuma yo kuba yuko bokeje igitutu se wabo. Haji Kassim genda mu maso
esebo akati munange embeera eyo netusanyusa nnyo netubeera nga tuli mu ssanyu ejjitirivu kakati ate jjukira nti ne maama wange naye muntu yava Rwanda eyo yajja yekka kwegamba naye
obafaananira ddala
kakati naye afunye ku mulamu gwatawulirangako gwatalabangako kwegamba okitegeera omusajja omuzaalidde abaana 12 naye nga toyinaayo wali yali azze kunaazaako wadde okunyiganyigako essanyu eryo Kayiira simanyi na kyenyinza kugamba nti kwegamba Mukama Katonda alina ebintu byakweka emitima gy'abantu nze ng'omwana omukulu mu luggya kyampa ekifaananyi kinene kyampa ekyobugagga ekirala era kati I belong to somewhere ne bwemba munwanzijulidde manyi nsenga wange gyali manyi abaana basenga wange gye bali manyi kwegamba that family which I used to lack oba okitegeera naye kiba kizibu nnyo sheekhe ng'oli mu kifaananyi oli awo owa manta onoonya olowooza gwe wabaaki taata kwegamba it's a very difficult situation to be honest.
Abasaidi ya mama bo bamanyi bakojja bo bategeera nnyo
abamaama bossi bangu bakufuna naye era nafunaayokko ninayo anti waali awo ekitintale naye w'e Rwanda ne ŋŋendako ekigali eyo ne nnoonya ne nfunayo kojjange kwegamba era naye ŋŋenda naye mu masitalinga kati naye nga omulimu munene sheekh nze nkimanyi kyolika
Haji Kassim uramubona ko asa n'abanyarwanda nyina n'umunyarwandakazi nawe yavuye mu Rwanda ajya i Bugande urumva kuba nyina yarababyaye ari abana 12 atari yanabona na muramu nta wifi yigeze abonana nawe urumva kujya kubona mushiki w'umugabo we nawe byaramushimije ko itameme yahise abona famille ariko uyu nawe bitamuha umwanya abona okaziyo yo kujya mu Rwanda gutangira guhiga famille yiwabo na nyina kuko nyina nawe n'umunyarwandakazi nk'uko umubona n'umugabo nawe ubwe asa n'abanyarwanda kabisa urabona agatutsi karimo kanonosoye so ajya mu Rwanda abasha kubona aba famille urabubona
ndi kumubona we avuga ikinyarwanda upa
Kassim ikinyarwanda kirimo
ntemuli ekyagaana
nta kirimo
katono ate nekyewuunyisa sheekhe nkubuulire bw'oba oyogera byonna mbiwulira siina kye siwulira era mmanya byokyotegeeza buli naye conversation okuvuga oba okuddamu lutalu.
Yes.
Naye nga alhamdulillah
Okay.
rabbil alamin ndi musanyu
Amin.
ekintu ky'okoze wallahi alhamdulillah rabbil kakati bw'ofolowingako reunion ya muganda wange ono okugenda okulaba maama we after 20 years 20 years ekintu ekiri ebbombo kati topic Mustafa buli omu ayogera ku Mustafa bannange omwana oyo pegamba yagenze n'ayagala abantu ne bamwagala omwana yennyini yakoze statement Sheikh kanjikubuulire yagambye nti can I tell you brother ne mugamba do you know all the years I've been in London nti otyo I lived at your house, I lived at my auntie's house, I lived at my own house. I've never belonged to somewhere the way I belong to my mom. Can you believe? Okwegamba yawulidde sense of nti naye ayina wa belonginga.
Yes.
Yagambye emyaka gyonna gye maze e Bulaaya mbaddeko ewuwo mbaddeko wa anti wange naye siwulirangako nti nina wengwa nga bwe nawulidde nga ndi wa maama wange.
Kino kankibulire mwannyinaze tumale tugende mu maaso okutesemu. Barakallahu fik. Giselle numvaga agomba kukubwira kangaka uyu nguyu nawe afite murumuna we yamuzanye hano mu Bwongereza afite imyaka 3 arwaye afite indwara imeze nabi cyane bari bazi ko agiye kwitaba Imana. Ageze hano yaciye connection zose no mu rugo yari amaze hano imyaka 20 uwo musore nyine murumuna we uruba yaje afite imyaka 3 yari afite 23 ans. Yagiye yaranze gusubira i Bugande communication yose yarayikupye nyine ntibazi ko byari byagenze nyina ameze nabi cyane umutima umurya buri munsi mpaka aho uyu musore yamaze afata icyemezo après 20 ans amuka ajya kubonana nyina ariko urumva mu byabaye ibindi yahise akora inshuti famiye yose abantu bahuruye yakoze inshuti nshyashya aramubwira ati kuva nabaho imyaka yose maze mu Bwongereza n'ubwa mbere mbona ubuzima ndumva nabonye ubuyanja nagaruye amagara. It's a very convoluted program tonight. Yes. Thank you very much, Hamid, and thank you very much, Haji Kassim. Well, let me just go on and hear your stories. I'm sure coming from Muslim families again, especially, but not limited to, you will have definitely something to feel about tonight's conversation, which is, have you had a situation where you are introduced into a family? You might be the person who was introduced into this family. It would be interesting to hear you are being brought in for the very first time. How does that feel? Or maybe you are the person on the receiving end. You are the sibling who had to receive a new sister, a new brother. How was that for you? We had a very interesting, tale from Hajat Sarah on how she was the recipient of the multiple children that her late husband fathered. Being brought in, first from the previous marriage, and then others even during the time that she was married to the husband, and how that actually had her more. The children from the previous relationships were not a problem. The children born while in wedlock, out of wedlock, actually did hurt her quite significantly. Probably you have a story to that effect, or someone, because sometimes people are not that free to sort of talk. They are not the Kairas who will come and sort of talk about how they feel so freely. But as you know, this is your global community conversation where we talk about every topic. The difference, of course, is the distance. If you've just joined us, 16 minutes past 9 o'clock in the United Kingdom, we are live on 75 W Radio, live on Ummah Connected. This is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, streaming now on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Zoom. Let me come to JP. I saw Jaden. Yes, Jaden is there, and I'll come to Ustad as well. You were early into the conversation tonight. I hope you're not that busy. Jaden, listening to the conversations, listening and seeing my newly found sister. First of all, probably your reaction to Imam Kasozi came in quite late, didn't get a chance to see my newly found sister, Imam. I found a sister after more than close to 50 years. She's close to my age, not very far from there, but you can see she looks much, much younger. It's the Kinyarwanda blood. Jaden, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and Happy New Year.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Happy New Year to you.
Amen.
Yeah, that's an amazing. an amazing story that you are able to find your long lost sister after I don't know how long.
Yes.
Had you met her before, or I'm not sure, but I can just imagine the.
Supposedly so, but I could not have an inkling of that. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I can imagine the excitement of seeing her, and then what's going through your mind is what's my dad, or what was he up to, and how many more are still out there, especially from all the stories you've been telling us that he's been a traveling man and he's been to all those countries. So we know when some of those men travel. I'm not saying your dad did, but there's evidence that he's done that. But that's his problem. Now, your problem is, how do you bring your sister into the fold? Because it's going to be quite challenging. Language, the culture is probably different. The experience, I know you share the same blood, but it's completely different.
Yeah.
Now, my story is quite the reverse, because my dad was quite cagey with information. He never talked about his.
Yeah.
He never talked about his background. He would just say, we come from the Sudan, we are from Juba, and that was the end of the story. Now, my brother disappeared in 1979 during the Amin War. And he found his way with the Amin soldiers, and they went into exile in the Sudan. And 40 years later, he appears. He traces his way back to the family home. By then, I was here. My younger brothers and sisters, they didn't know him because they were younger when he left, and they were sending me pictures and saying, "Do you know this man?" I said, "Yeah, he looks familiar. Ask him some strategic questions so that we can identify him." But anyway, it turned out to be him, and he tells me, "I've been in the Sudan. I've got family there. I've got children," and his second born in the Sudan, with the power of Facebook, decided to trace us. And one time he told me, "I've got your uncle here." And I said, "What uncle is that?" I said, "I've got your dad's brother is here with me. He is very poorly." Now, I'm nearly 60 years old. My dad never told me anything about his family. And this was my nephew telling me he's in the same room with my uncle. And I said, "Okay, put him on." And here was the old man lying in bed. His last days actually in bed. And he was able to tell me my dad's story. And the story was that, because my dad used to talk about the Wandukuru. I don't know if you know the Wandukuru, the Arabs from Sudan.
Yes,
and
yes.
you tell me those people are very bad, and that's where it would end. But now his brother told me that my dad had gone to work in the farms, and the Wandukuru got him and snatched the hoe that he had been entrusted with.
Yes.
Now, out of fear, he decided to walk south and ended up in Uganda and never went back. And he died with that story in him. So for me to hear that story from his uncle, who had never met, and telling me all about his dad, I mean, his brother, now I can relate to the story that you are going through now with your sister. Because what parts do you believe and what parts don't you believe? For me, I believe 100% of all that because I don't know any other story. And it becomes quite emotional saying, at a time when I would have loved to meet and reunite the whole family, I'm just getting pieces of information. I couldn't.
Pieces.
Yeah, I couldn't take myself to the Sudan because at the time there was still elements of war going on, and I'm here in the UK. Finances is also not there, and this is the old man who is on his deathbed. You know, it was quite sad for myself and happy at the same time that I was able to see my uncle and hear these stories, which my dad was very cagey about. And I just couldn't understand why he was cagey with that kind of information. Because what I believe, that we've got other relatives there, you know, his older brothers must have died now, but there's other cousins and family and aunties and all those people who are still living there. But how do I reconnect with them? It's a difficult thing. Much as I would have loved to, the power of the internet is there, but say Southern Sudan is still not one of those areas where you can easily access and start looking for people the way you know the program here, long lost family that we see on Channel 4 or something. We don't have that. So you must take yourself as a very lucky person to have your sister in your presence. You're going to meet her soon, still young. You've seen your yeah.
Now,
So,
then you know we've got a younger brother. He's my younger brother, but now he's like the head of the family on the other side. When I flagged the news of my finding Hamida, because once I found Hamida, now I started telling them, you know, about her. And there was one actually who knew her, who had met her when Dad was still alive. Dad had got to her and you know connected them, and they had at least established a sort of a connection, but which also got cut about nearly 20 years ago. So there's been that disconnect. But now this brother says, and he was at our father's deathbed before Dad died, and he said when Dad was in hospital in those last days, the phone call comes through. He was the gatekeeper now, sort of picking up the calls and deciding which phone to give to Dad and which one not to. So he says there's a phone call that came through. He goes and speaks to the phone, you know, says, yeah, who is this? So they say their name and they insist they want to speak to Dad. So Dad, now he goes and asks Dad, is it okay? You know, this person who is insisting they want to speak to you, is it okay I put them on? He said, yeah, please hand me. In that moment of weakness, Dad speaks to, you know, the lady, and then off the back of that phone conversation, he says to that brother of ours, he says, yeah, that is also one of your mothers. And I have so many children, they will keep coming. They will keep appearing. When they appear, please receive them well. So for me, whatever, because now I know we've got two siblings in South, no, three, so two girls and a boy in South Africa born to a Zulu woman. I think that's now work that we have to go and do and look for them. They're there in South Africa. Dad was in South Africa for about 5-6 years. In that time, he had, you know, he fathered those children. We've never had any connection, but we know they're there. And someone has managed to trace them. So I think I might be doing a journey to South Africa at some point to go and look for them. And I'm sure that will be another very big story. But these are stories that you hear continuously. Now, then, having had your own father's story, did it make you change your mind about your dad? I mean, did you start seeing your dad probably in a different light? Probably understood some of the things that he wasn't able to tell?
Yeah, I think I understood him even better because my dad was very protective. He was, from the age of 10, I remember my dad was a single dad because our mom left. But he stood by ourselves. He held a job and at the same time looked after us and educated us. Mm-hmm. So I believe he didn't want to lose us, or he didn't want us to be without a family the way he grew up without his parents. So he was very protective, and that's one thing I understood from that after meeting my uncle. Because men those days were, the wife leaves, he replaces immediately. But he didn't do that for a very long time until an age where we're were understanding and we could look after ourselves. We could blow our own noses and wash our clothes. That is when he brought in a stepmother. But from an early age, he did everything that you would expect a responsible father to do. And I'm glad he did that, because he's kind of passed that attitude on to me of being caring and looking after my own kids. And I don't want them to grow without a father or without a mother, and to have that somewhat of parental responsibility around them. So I'm grateful in that respect. But the one thing that I'm not happy about, or I would have asked him, is why the silence? I know his problem was with the Wandukuru, but not with his family, because he just appeared. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and things happened to him. I'm sure if he went back home and said, I was beaten up by the Arabs and they took my hoe and everything, his parents would have understood. But according to his brother, it was at a time of famine. So a hoe would be the equivalent of, I don't know what, to something very important at the time, when people were going through famine.
Now, Jaden, you are a man. You have your Nalongo who you love so much. In our travels as men, a woman turns up and brings a kid and says, Jaden, this is your son or your daughter. She's 13, 14 years old. How do you break that news to Naro?
I think I'm now at that age where I can admit anything.
What does that mean? Do you have nothing to lose? Are you at a point where she can no longer leave you, or if she left you, it wouldn't mean anything?
I think I'm at that age where these things no longer matter. And if you admit it, you admit it. If you don't admit it, you make even matters worse. So it's better to say, well, this happened at a time when it happened, and what's the most important thing is the kids, and we are still together. And it's entirely up to yourself if you want us to continue or if you want us to break up because of a past mistake.
Ajat Sarah is just there giving you a bravo now, sort of saying. It is one that I wouldn't know how to face up to, and because now, to me, I think probably it would lie between two situations. Many a wife would be willing to take in a child that is older than your relationship. In other words, a child that you had probably before you married them. But any child that was had during that period that you are together, the kind of questions and answers you'd need to find, I think, might be quite multiple. Jaden, as usual, fantastic. Thank you very much. 9:30 o'clock. And this is the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. We are live on 75W Radio, live on Umma Connected, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. And well, time to hear more of your stories. I think it is quite interesting. Amina Amba, I'll bring you in here just to sort of test the waters. See, probably did you end up getting to hear a sibling that you never knew you had, or were you the sibling that was brought in the house? Do you have any experience? I mean, coming from probably polygamous family, you might, I don't know actually if you come from a polygamous family, maybe not. But do you relate to tonight's topic where we are talking about getting to be introduced either as the child born away from the main family, or actually you being the recipient of that? Amina, are you there? Hello, Amina, I'm trying to get to you. Okay, maybe not. Ndabiyewe Sheikh Zakaria Tiwarianga, who has been joining us lately quite consistently. Barakallahu fikum. Much appreciated for the time you spare, especially considering the time, what time it is, where you are at. It is definitely not something that can be taken for granted. Sheikh Zakaria, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, Sheikh Zakaria. Zakaria, are you there? Okay, let me try. Go. Oh, Sheikh
Alaikum
Azze. Yeah.
salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sibu tweyanziza akadde kojjiddemu osanze naakalaga abantu mwannyinaze gwe mbadde simanyi azze oluvannyuma
Yes,
lw'emyaka 50 egy'obukulu n'aba ng'ayanjuddwa mu famire ye
Allah.
Hamida naye embeera zonna ze yakuliramu n'abaana azze n'abalaga ku topiki omubadde mutanajoyiningira ne Imam Kasozi naye okuba nga tuva mu maka amasiraamu
Naam.
okuba nga tuva mu maka amasiraamu quite often kiyinza obuteewuunyisa okuba ng'oli awo seeka n'aleeta mwana ne baleeta omwana ne bagaa nti oyo muganda wammwe oba mwannyinammwe nkakasa kino si kipya mu matu
Si kipya.
so
Alhamdulillah,
experience
experience nange mpuliriza nange ndi Madiina badde nva ku haramu wano ne ngamba kampulize
barakallahu fikum ali atya Madiina nga taviika
Allah Madiina alhamdulillah si mubi mulungi alhamdulillah naye nyumiddwa nnyo story zempulirizaako at least for that small time era experience eyo nnene ate ffe tubifuna nnyo mu families z'abantu Sheikh jangu sebo mutabani wange twagize waliwo n'omusiraamu oyo yakafa yava Bungereza eyo baali bamuyita Tamale.
Oh yes.
Tamale oyo naye almost had the same story nti taata we waka yandekawo nga nze omu ku bakuza naye bamuleeta musajja mukulu era ewa taata we ndoza yamaze emyaka nga around 7-8 yali yakajja taata we n'amala emyaka nga 3 n'afa kati naye after ndoza 4 years naye kwe kufa naye nga he joined the family kumpi almost after 50 years nga tabeerako naki na bazadde be. So I was so
yayanguyibwa atya okugenda mu family bamwaniriza batya mu family
bamwaniriza bulungi nnyo kubanga bakolayo akabaga awo Haji n'ayita abaana be bonna n'abagamba ate by the way nga ye mukulu waabwe he was his second born yali omwana we okumeka owokubiri gwe yazaala mu nga omanyi mu jahiliya kakati yafuna welcome nga nnungi baseeka n'abayita nakingera omuntu bwomanyi nti omuntu aze mu famire ne aba famire teyali buyi. Ekyokubiri kidipendinga oluusi ku sayidi y'abasajja nenyimirirayo financially ojja mu famire nga oluusi kulabanga dependant nga ate waakajja oluusi reception eyinza obutaba nnungi nnyo naye bw'ojoininga family empya nga balaba nti naawe you are independent financially nga tebalabamu ku becoming a new burden to the family at times welcome yo ebeera nnungi.
Sheikh Zakaria sawa akasubi katono awo mara okunnyonnyola mwannyinaze kubanga olulimi luno taluwulira emara okumunyonnyola katono opportunity yes. Gisele ngira ngo uranyumva uyu nguyu turimo kuvugana n'umushehe yitwa Zakaria Kyewalyanga twariganye muri secondaire ariko yakomeje kuba umushehe ariko histoire azanye nuko hari umwana baherutse hari umugabo bazanye muri famille afite ari mukuru kabisa yaramba hashize imyaka nka 14-15 bamuzana ari mukuru muri famille mwakira neza ariko aravuga ati ça dépend umuntu imyakirire bakwakirayo biterwa n'uko uje uri umukene ukaza uri umutindi cyane benshi bashobora kubona nkaho ugiye kuba ikibazo kubusanze iyo uje wifite bakwakira neza kuko baba bumva ko nta kibazo ugiye kubatera nta buremere ugiye kubongerera ku buremere bari bafite muri famille quand même. So aravuga ati ça dépend uko umeze bishobora kugira influence bishobora ku influence imyakirire uri bugire muri famille cyane cyane babona ko wifite ushobora kuba hari icyo wakungura famille cyangwa se ukaba hari uburemere wabagabanyiriza muri make.
Ah oui, ça c'est vrai.
Chez Zakaria agenda mu maso se
Esoboka experience eyo neebanga nene nnyo okubeera nti ebiseera ebisinga obungi families abamu banoonya
abamu banoonya ki? Hello, Sheikh Zakaria. Oh, that's dropped off. Okay, no problem. Sheikh Zakaria wanadda tunageza kutunonya. Sheikh Abdullah Dumba, you had promised that we would get you. I don't know if you're still there. Sheikh Zakaria, your line I think is dropped. Sheikh Zakaria Wori. Okay, I'll try Sheikh Abdullah Dumba now. Since Sheikh Zakaria is gone quiet, I can't even actually get to him. But it's the dilemmas. And if you've just joined us, I started the conversation looking at two important aspects. One, finding a new member and integrating them into the family. I spoke about my sister, Imam Watabade. I got a sister who we'd never met, and we managed to find each other through social media. And she's the Kaira without a doubt. The laughter, the everything. She has all the characteristics. And Dad had mentioned her at some point. And so the kind of reception, because she felt she didn't have family. Her mother was killed during the Rwandan. Just for family, there is just very little on the other side. I think there's only an uncle. The others have sort of, either disappeared or died. And there's just one person in the line. And between me and her, there was a cousin called Sandra, who is the one who introduced us. And we started having a conversation. So that was part of the story. But the other side of the story was I also spoke about an uncle who went into Congo for nearly 40 years, having lost total contact with the family. We never even imagined that he would still be alive. He turns back after 40 years, something that was incredible, something that gave our late grandmother the happiness of her life after my father, her first son, managed to find his brother after looking into Congo, nearly 16 years of deliberate effort going into Congo and trying to look for her brother. It was the climax of happiness in the family. And we've heard from different people, Haj Kassim here, Giselle's own story with the son, Didier, which was quite inspirational. I wish my own sons were here because I think then they would have had a conversation to speak one-on-one. I wish, I didn't know it would pan out like this. With programs, sometimes you're planning and you don't know which way it's going to go. So it is quite interesting to hear, and coming from the families that we come from, especially polygamous families, chances are at one point in time, you will get a brother, you will get a sister that you didn't know. Sometimes it might actually come in at a very bad point where you go, you fall in love with the girl, you start sleeping around the youthful energies, and by the time you decide to go and meet your parents, you only realize then that you're actually related. You can imagine how bad that would have been. But stuff happens, and you just start being brother and sister from where you know, because it wasn't your own doing. Well, we'd like to hear from more of you. I know some of you are at work, and therefore, well, but I'll come and just hear. Sauda N, please let me hear from you. Sauda, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today?
I'm very good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
You've been listening in. I've been seeing you. You've been on the story. You've had the different stories. First of all, your own reaction probably before we hear if you have a similar experience at all.
It is very interesting, but I haven't got a similar situation. But I grew up with a stepmother, but she's an amazing woman. My mom passed away quite a long time ago, but that is after she had left my dad. And I grew up with a stepmom. She came in when I was little. I didn't even know what was going on. I think I was like 2 years old. But she's an amazing woman. And in my experience,
a lot of times you don't hear good things, good stuff being spoken about stepmothers. That's good to hear.
Yeah, you wouldn't know because I've got stepsisters and brothers, but you can't even tell who is who is a step and who isn't. You know, I mean, we grew up together and we've got a very good relationship. And I think that's because my stepmom, she never showed any, you know, like favorites. We were all her children. So that contributes a lot. And I heard about Hajat Sarah's story. I think she's an amazing woman as well. Me personally, my husband has children and, you know, they are my kids. Those kids and my children get on so well. But I don't know how I would react if my husband turned up with a child who is younger than our marriage. I don't know if I would. The child hasn't, it's not the child's fault, but to me, I feel like if I welcome that child, it's like
you're opening
giving him
a door.
you know, yeah, it's like I'm telling him, yeah, you can bring more.
Yes.
So I think from the word, you know, we've got a child, I'll be like, no thanks, you know, take that child back to their moms. If the marriage still stands, you know. So me personally, I think it's amazing to people who do it, but I don't know if I can do it myself.
But Sauda, have you considered this? Because a lot of times, many women will be very comfortable if this child was brought into your home, because then you cut off the contact with the mother. Because the possibility is, as long as that child still is with the mother, there will be provision. You know, you're going there, and if you have to go to hospital, you are allowing the communication to continue, and you never know if it happened the first time, what would stop it happening another time. So some women would rather you bring the child home, so that then you cut off the other channel where, you know, the connection would be.
You can't be sure, because even that woman will be contacting my husband wanting to know how the child is doing. Me being a mom, you know, I know I would want to know how my child is doing. So It's like you are even giving them more time. You know, they haven't got any kids in the way. They can do whatever they want. And also, you may, even if you cut off that communication with that woman, he's going to have other communications with other women, because you've allowed him to do that. He's going to think, yeah, my wife is okay. She's an amazing woman. She can take in any kids. So he's going to keep on doing it. So I would stop it from, you know, I don't think my husband would dare anyway. Because we've said it from the beginning, I cannot do this. The children that he had before our marriage, 100%. I've told those children, you know, this home is our home. They can, you know, we talk. They even tell me like secrets they can't tell to their dad. We get on so well. But any child who is younger than my marriage is a big no. So I wouldn't take it.
But so that, you know, stuff happens. Things happen.
Yeah.
And if Laila Kaddu is comfortably saying, come for your hug, Mama, she's urging you on. But stuff happens. And if stuff happens, and you've already established that it is not this young child's fault, it will be to the husband. Don't you think you are much safer having this child? I know I'd put it to you, but I'm bringing it back again once you've said this. Don't you think you are in a much safer position having this child in your home other than the child being with their mother? Because then you're sort of giving the husband the ticket to go and check on this child.
I never gave him
because you're not there.
Sheikh, I never gave him the ticket in the first place. So if he did it in the first place, he can do it again, regardless of me having the child with me or the child being with their mom. Do you know what I mean? So that is a big no. I would not allow that. I know it's not the child's fault, but nah. It's his mistake. He can clear his own mistakes.
Yes. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sauda. Abdullah Dumba, you are back on, and I think on a better line. Sauda, barakallahu fikum, and a very prosperous new year ahead, inshallah, full of barakah, full of rizq, full of good health for all of us here, and continuing to be part of this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ameen. Sheikh Dumba, you are back. Assalamu alaikum.
Once again, alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again, thank you so much for the endless opportunities that you lay down for us to discuss some important issues, some concerning issues that are touching our hearts every time you come. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you abundantly. Kakati, again, I'm emphasizing, please, for those of you who will not be able to hear Luganda, I just want to put a disclaimer that I think in Luganda, my thinking process is in Luganda.
Yes, I'll try to translate. I'll try to translate the Luganda now into English once you're done. Although I can never do a full good job of that. So go ahead, please. Feel free. I'll translate only for my special guest tonight. All of you are special guests, but we have a special guest, my sister.
And congratulations, congratulations for finding your blood, finding your sister. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you together. And abawangazi bulungi inshallah. So no yedira mbogo.
Embogo kati ebadde embogo Nyarwanda kati egenze kuganda wala.
Kakati kyana kya mbogo oyo senge kisokerwako kyonna kumukolera inshallah. Teach her how to kinagambye nti ndowooza mu Luganda.
Yes.
Ayige bakuyita batya okweyogerako mu Luganda, okutambula ng'Omuganda, okulanya. So I don't know how I would put that word in English. So I'm processing in Luganda.
Leka mukomyewo imaamu amulabeko kubanga imaamu yabayita najja n'abazireti. Giselle, ndagusaba wongere usireho video silver play. Hari abaje nyuma mu kiganiro kandi bifuza kukubona, please, niba bitakugoye. Kuri kamera deja nuva waklika kuko ingu yagiye kuvuga mu kiganiro ubwo ndi bugusimurire buhoro apre. Imam Kasozi ndabavuddeyo jyabadde mu katima. Giselle, niba ugihari silver play kakanda kuri ya intuza ya video na ntuza bakubone, please. Yes, Sheikh Abdallah, genda mu maso se.
All right, kakati point
reka muteke ko Imam Kasozi amaro muraba urungi. Yes. Okay, that is my sister Hamida. Hey, my found sister. Newly found sister. Akasekoka n'abakonna ka Kayira.
Mubaraka alaikum. Kakati ensonga bbiri zagadde okwegatta baganda bange. I mean, omukyala avuddeyo waggulu agambye no. Mbadde simanyi na kumanya nti nabadde n'emyutinze dda n'enseka.
Yes, I heard you laughing. Yes.
N'enseka n'okuseka gaye nti tekikkirizika. Naye bannange mu mbeera ey'omukwano ennyo kye njagala okukozesa bannange. Mbeegayiridde nsaba Allah nannyumiza ataasa, manyi this is not a very simple topic to discuss. Bara njagala kubeegayirira bannange nti tusabe Allah nannyini buyinza atutaase, kubanga as much as twogera into government, we find kids not responsible for anything that happened. Sinsonga omukyalo ono omwana ono bamuleese nga bw'oli mu maka oba bamuleese nga tonnaba kubeerawo, bambi tubeeremu flexible. Tutya nnyo, kati nze kanjogerera abasajja, kati bwe mpulira kigambo ng'ekyo munnange ntya nnyo ne ngamba Katonda ngibwe ndiba nguzizza kiriba kitya. Kati kitegeeza n'okugenda mu halaali nnyinza okutya. Naye ng'ate factors nnyingi eziyinza okuntwala ew'omuntu omulala okuba nti muleeta naye abeera oluusi kiyinza okubeera balance. Akamuleete waka kuba munnaye ono gwe nnina mu kukyala wange alabika ali bize nnyo, kati kandeeteka balance. Naye eyo si yo topiki gye tubadde tuliko olwaleero. Topiki gye tuliko olwaleero ye yessanywira omuganda waffe Kayira lyafunye ne sister waffe. You remember when nali nga tuli e Bugiswawo, I got to know my second mom for the first time. And I was 23, maybe, if not 24. I was for the first time introduced to my mother. Naye essanyu lye nawulira nga bandaze maama wange yali Hussein Kyazze, ye yali amumanyi. I don't know how he came to know her. I mean, because we are related, but how he came to know me asobola okungatta ku maama wange. Maama wange
akuzaalira ddala.
Eyali akulira maama wange anzaalira ddala. Nze nakula nga nempeza emyaka 24 nga simanyi maama wange mulala. And ffenna nga tukaaba amaziga gamu abahaji muguluma abo ffenna tukaba amaziga gamu nti ye maama waffe nayo atulagayo ku kkojja nawuddeko yagedde ku kkojja eyagenda n'azuula kkojjaawe n'azuula sengaawe baasaba taata waabwe omwana mwannyina n'agenda n'abaleetera senga naye ffe nga tubuuza maama waffe oba tulinayo kkojja naye nga tumutya oluusi n'okumutya okuba tuyinza okumubuuza ekigambo ekyo kubanga nga tuyinza omumujjukiza ate ennaku gy'akola ki gy'alimu naye situnakkojja ffe n'omu gwe twalabako. But I was lucky to see my mama. Maama wange oyo essanyu lye nafuna nava kwa UIU ne ŋŋenda e Bunkoko. Ne tugenda e Bunkoko, butuuka e Bunkoko ne ntuula ku mubiri gwa maama wange. A big boy of 25, a man. Ne nfuna akakisa okutuulako ku mubiri gwa maama wange. Ne ntunuulira maama nga mwetegereza ndabe what resemblance was there between her and my mom. And I found out that I was the duplicate of this mama gwe nsanze omupya than mama wange ate akola ki anzaalira ddala kubanga musajja wa nnyindo ndi muganda wa nnyindo nnene katono mama wange oba okitegeera.
Can we see you, Sheikh Abdallah? Why totally comfortable? Can we see you on video, please?
Mujja kundaba olulala.
Okay, that's all right.
Mujja kundaba olulala nyambadde obulo nnyingi. Naye, the thing I wanted to share is the excitement that was there to find my other mom. I only grew up knowing only one mama. Era bakulu bange nga nze ngamba mama waffe munaku, mama waffe talina bantu be balala bonna. But ng'ate tujja n'okutya kati ekigambo ekyo ky'oleese kirimu ebintu bibiri. Mulimu essanyu, but at the same time n'ennaku. Oba okitegeera nti osaasira omuntu gwe baleese mu mbeera eyo ne gwe banjudde. Eky'essayidi ey'ennaku ekyo nkirabyeko nti waliwo omuntu gwe baaleeta mu famire mu kitaata wange omuto ne bamuleeta naye bamutuusa awo n'enfumiitiriza wa gye yava omusajja gwe baayita nga mukulu ne ŋŋamba baamuggyeewa kaakati ono omusajja taata we gw'abadde the father that he was living with is he not experiencing a big loss okuba nti aluzinze this big man okuba nti omwana ono ate bamututte bamulaze ewantu ewalala. So embeera yetukwatako gy'oleese topic gy'otuleetedde etukwatako. We are not far from the excitement that we're experiencing today, but at the same time we are not far from the sadness that this may cause for some people who are introduced to new families ate nga babadde bamanyiddwa mu families ze babaddemu, which portrays a situation eyali badde yinza okuba nti enakuwaza nnyo omuntu eri gy'avudde. Akasemberayo ddala abantu baabuuza nti tetusasudde bali abantu abadde naye tetubasasule. Can you imagine, if you understand what I'm talking about? Tubasasule for taking care of the kid until this age.
Yes.
Oba okitegeera ekibuuzo ekyo kyakola ki?
What can you pay? Is it possible even okugezaako okusasula?
Anti olwo oyinza okuba nga ogenda kubalirira ssente eza babysitter n'ezaakoze ekyo byonna ebyakuza omusajja oyo n'afa ku myaka 30. Abaamujjanjaba nga bamanyi nti bajjanjaba mwana waabwe baviiremu awo bwereere. So that's the sad part of it. Okay? Oli aba afiiridde omwana we agamba nkirese ye DNA ennaku zino oluusi bwatyo bwakikola, but at the same time essanyu lino nga tujaganya nga tugamba alhamdulillah batuleetedde omuntu singa abaawo omuntu ayinza okuba nti yaclaiminga. But for this one abadde nga talina muntu amuclaiminga nga sister azudde buzuuzi waabwe kati ssaawa eno. That's a blessing. Alhamdulillah tujaganya bujaganyi. But it's very important to have, being part of this conversation. Jazakallahu khairan.
Barakallahu fikum. Reka move njiteke mu Luswahili in case waliwo atawulira Luganda naye agenderemu. Barakallahu fikum. Uma connected omukono ngulaba waggulu. So let me just do a quick translation. Giselu nguyu yafashe umwanzuro wo kuvuga mu Kigande nubwo ari nubwo n'icyongereza cyiza ariko yumvise ibyo yashaka kuvuga byakumvikana neza ari uko bisize mu kigande. So we yagaragaje nawe bamweretse kuko nyina yakuze na nyina ariko hari bibaza niba nyina nta bavandimwe agira ntaki. Finalima aza kubona baza kumubwira afite 24 ans. Twariganye nawe kuri kaminuza i Bugande, twariganye kuri university. So ari kuri kaminuza baza kumuhamagara baramubwira ngo hari murumuna wa nyina bavukana neza uko bakurikirana. Ajya kumushaka arumva afite imyaka 25 ariko yaragiye abonye uwo nyina abona baranasa kurusha na nyina umubyara. Aramwicara aragenda aramukikira ararinda nyine bivamo amarira. So we aravuze ati muri uyu munsi turimo kwishimira kuza kwa Hamida ariko birimo ibintu bibiri. Harimo uruhande rwo kumva ibyishimo byinshi byo kuza ariko noneho hakabamo n'akababaro uvuga uti igihe cyose natakaje ibyatambutse ndahari ibyancitse, nyine kumva ko harimo icyo kintu cy'akababaro gatoya kaza kubera izo mpamvu. So maybe ushobora kuba wamusubiza niba hari icyo ushobora kuba wamubwira. Wewe ku bwawe urumva harimo ako kababaro se ko hari icyo watakaje mu mateka yavuye inyuma cyangwa cyane cyane wowe urareba imbere kurusha uko ureba inyuma?
Non, je regrette pourquoi tutamenyanye mbere, parce que iyo umenyanye na famille très tôt uprofita byinshi, mais trop tard ntacyo ushobora kubamarira nkaho ukiri umusore quand même. Mais quand même je suis contente parce que je suis avec vous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Base ujo tawuliddeekyo ekingidde mu Lufaransa konka kasapoka pikinze. Yeah, so naye ebyayita tasobola abyejjusaamu ku side emu naye ekisinga okumugumya kwe kuba nti ye kasita atunula kunze awulira mukufu ebisigadde awulira nga bijja kujja waanaatandikira bikwatidde waanaatandikira. So story ye kati ebiri ebibaddewo byonna bibadde gye byali era tebyalina we byalina kukyuka atandikidde wano wekiri nti awulira omutima mukufu oluvannyuma lw'okuba nti andabye kati amanyi nti ebisigadde nze ngenda omutambuza byonna era nga bwe nagambye those who joined us late, inshallah August is a plan ogenda omutwala naye nga already by August I think family egenda kusooka ejje wano e Bungereza mumale omutambuza ate mubakayira abali e Bungereza wenkakasa nti nawo tuweerawo ng'omunaana oba omwenda. Tetuli batono naffe tulinga abengeye bakasujja. Barakallahu fikum Sheikh Dumba. Merci Giselle. Umma connected, so we'll go ahead. Hello, Umma connected. Mkono waguwanise ukanambaliddeyo, please go ahead. And it's exactly 10.
Kampitembo wangu singa kwogera luzungu mulimu omuntu muno mulimu omuzungu
inagwo oli
sagala ulire byenjogera.
Okay.
Kampitembo wangu netwaka
ayagala kumugeya zaidi ayagala kugeya
atayagala ulire mukwatako.
Kampitembo wangu wainze opposite yo
waliwo police
was in issues ne essanyu lyoyina njagala okufayininga sister. Sanyu pitirivu bulungi naye keke mumpulira
tukuwulira bulungi nnyo ssebo.
Nze okufaananako naawe sisita waffe omukulu Haji yamufuna mu bino bya kito bino byakujjira yasinga okufaanana Haji naye yagaana okujja ye yalemerayo eri omutunulira bw'otunulaba kitaawe ye n'ekiwalaata kya Haji bwekiti kyenyi naye yagaanirayo eri ate kati bamuwasanga omukyala bamuwasanga ali lubuto ate yamuwasa n'atamanya nti ali lubuto naye n'atamugamba nti ono omwana si omwana wuuli naye omutunuulira n'akumalako noga yarabbi singa ojja come home naye yagaana ate nga n'abeeri bakimanya ne batamukkiriza bulungi kati ali awo naye yagamba kambeera eno mmange teyandeka. I wish I was in your shoes nti asobola okujja n'abaana ate omulala wa muganda wange ye yazaala omwana yasinga mufaanana mu nsi muno ne bw'omulaba akabya n'amaziga yasinga omufaanana akuze musajja mukulu agenda myaka 4 naye gwasinga obutagala yamwegaana omwana asinga okufaanana buli kimu nenjogera nekuba kutemya yasinga okufaanana yagaa nti temuleete wange tayitawo ne mu lujja wano tasalawo kale ane nga jjajjaffe kyeyasinga okwagala abantu nze kyensinga okwagala abantu keke nze bundeete jjajjaffe yagamba nga temuleetera sente zange nziina mundeetere bantu nange kyensinga okwagala naye omuntu okwegaana omuntu nga ntamufaanana kati keke gwe ne weegaana omu ku baana bo nkukuba emiggo
biyinza okunnema bwe mbinnyonnyola
naye ndi happy nnyo olwa sistawo I wish I was in your shoes.
Oh, brilliant. Gisele reka mubwire ibyo bavuze hano. Uyu mugabo avuze ibintu bibiri ngira ngo by'ingenzi cyane. Icya mbere afite mukuru wabo kwa se, niwe mwana mukuru se yamubyaye atari yashaka na nyina wabo, ariko niwe urusha gusa na se wabo, ariko ngo baragiye ashakwa n'uwundi mugabo nyine umugore yaragiye yasamye inda nyine bamusingira afite inda kandi atari uwo mugabo nyine wamushatse. Ajya kubyara abyaye umwana niwe urusha abandi bose gusa na se wabo, ariko we yanze kuza kuko barabimubwiye ariyangira aguma muri ya famiye nyine yanze kugira uko agaruka. Afite murumuna we bavukana uyu nguyu aravuga ati nawe afite umwana yabyaye hanze, nawe barasaba itinze, ariko umugabo se w'umwana yaramwihakanye yaramwanze, yanze kumwemera kumuzana muri famiye. So aravuga ati nawe afite ibyishimo byinshi cyane kubona nyine wemeye kuza kuri porogaramu no kuza kuba pari y'ibiganiro ati kandi yifatanyije natwe mu kwishima.
Mwausi na mimi nafurahi sana kuwa na nyie.
Amina. Zaidi sema amefurahi sana kuwa na nyinyi. Uruswahili rwako
sema Urunyarwanda nduhurira
ndishimye kuba ndi kumwe namwe.
Ikinyarwanda nawe aracyumva ngo ari bariye Ikinyarwanda aracyumva kubivuga nibyo byanze.
Nange ndishimye
sebo muhurira mu yesimye nyosebo
ate bwabagenda kujya Newcastle batunajya Fernand tumusanyukira Newcastle.
Gisele uramumva ngo bose barakwiteguye uze mu Bwongereza bakwakira utangare.
Kwa munani turi kuza.
Oya mbere kwa munani ugomba kuza mu Bwongereza, kwa munani ni Buganda.
Ubwo tuzaza muri juillet avant yuko tumanuka i Buganda.
Ok, sans problème. Ok,
voilà. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So, yes, we are having a conversation tonight, which you have managed to listen to a good bit of it. You hadn't seen my sister, you managed to see. She's just the basis of the story, but it's a bigger conversation about how, finding family later on, being brought in as a child or receiving a child that has been brought to you. I'm sure through not only your work, but your own life experience, definitely you would have something that relates directly to this.
Okay. Thank you very much. Personally, I want to look at it from 3 perspectives. In view of what I have heard some people say, and I will appreciate each and everybody because I know where we are coming from. Probably it is those that have probably not lost a person in a circumstances similar to what we are trying to narrate that may find it relatively hard to appreciate. And for the sisters who said no, and one invited the other for a hug, I also appreciate.
That's like a cut.
Yes, I appreciate their standing.
Yes.
But it could be them. It could be them that may be affected.
To the family. Yes.
So, under whatever circumstances it happens, we need to really critically look at it. Me, I am positioning myself as a sociologist, student of society. I am a community leader and leading on the basis of the Islamic perspective. You are Imam. Such issues may emerge. And then we have the Islamic aspect of appreciating, if we are going by the Islamic rules, okay, what position should people take? I am seeing people, they are taking the Islamic perspective, which is fine. But we go back and say, as human beings, as students of society, we need to appreciate that largely the fault is not, for example, for your sister to get lost. No. Allah, because sometimes the process of fathering children, also sometimes even mothering children, it could be a big issue. I these days tell people there are things I studied in sociology I couldn't believe because of where I was brought up and our traditions, certain things that were being said, we couldn't accept until now I have seen them. Why? Those people who write anything written, when you find something written, it does not just come. Some people have done some research and have reasoned and they put them down. But appreciating and accepting them becomes hard because we do not experience them. But the moment we experience, if you have, is it Jaden? I have had Jaden. I have had the Dumba. My case, in a bigger family, for example, we have two people. They got lost, I would say, but I think they died. One of them is my uncle, who my mother was following. He was abducted in the war in 1979 and he disappeared. Some people up to now, they believe, he was imprisoned in Tanzania. Then I always tell them, but he knew how to write and read. He should have written a letter. He died. Then my younger brother was also abducted during this, the Museveni Obote war. And he was conceived to be a rebel. He disappeared. We don't know where he is up to now, but we also strongly believe he died. Supposing such a person emerges, you have a different story. But in our family, two of my uncles, very big contradiction you're going to hear. One whom we buried, some of you, last year, you remember I said I have lost an uncle, and some of you, this uncle of mine, I had never seen him as a person. The only, I had heard, simple, but the real time to hear about him was after he had died. He dies in Kampala from her half-sisters. I don't know whether I could call them half-sisters. They don't share the father. My uncle is the son of my grandfather. Now, his mother went with him when he was, I think, I don't know, it may have been even a pregnancy, I think. A pregnancy, a very young kid. At the time when also and remember our grandfather died in 1966. Now in 2023, they tell you have lost your uncle, prepare for his burial. A person you have never seen. Then you begin to ask, so I asked one of my uncles, who's the only three, there are only three uncles of mine who are existing out of about 15, who my grandfather had. Now he says, Tatawo is there, he has died. Now the people they refer to me, they are Christians. Bebaina body. They believe Ismail is a Muslim. They want him buried as a Muslim. I have never heard about these ones. Then I had to drive a vehicle on Michiana Road, Bujuku, inside there to reach, and I found this is the body. I had to organize to bury, and we buried him in Nkowe. So such an experience that I had now to go back to sit with these Basengabange now. Okay, Bobango, they are from the Ngo clan, Fetulibanga. But because they are sisters to my uncle, Katibeba Senga, you sit down in a family, all of them Christians. By body Muslim, they have a Muslim body, and they want you to. Now people in the village, they rely on you that since Imam Kasos is there, he will do the needful, which actually we did.
Yeah.
So subjects then never took a time again. And now say, oh, they want to go for dua in the Sikola. Challenge. So we must understand that the social relationships that we have can develop into that. Yafa. Another uncle of ours, Yaya Veka, he left when he was a bit old, as a young man. Mm. He also left around 1966. Ingatatawe, Ingatanafawa, either around that. Tatawe ya chaliwo. He disappears. A few years ago, they tell us, Tata Dirisa is in Kabalungi. Since Kabalungi is after Chinoni, when you are going to Chaza, when you are going to Mbirizi.
Yes.
And we trust him, me and my other siblings. Actually, we are coming. Then we went, we reached his home. We found him there. He was excited to see us, as we were also excited to see him, because we had spent more than 50 years. Ingati tumulaba netumanyi nti jali. Kati we visit him. We plan to see him again. Second time, twagenda okuddayo nga azemu n'asenguka. Kati now they tell us nti yagenda Mubende, but he did not even say to this place. Now, those are experiences which all of us can have. You see, so anybody in your family, I don't want you to say because mwana wa husband wo, and then you add on nga sister ani asendio kogera the one Laila, the one Laila Sauda. And they say no, it depends. If he was maybe before the relationship, yes. After the relationship, no. Of course, after the relationship, why it hungers you is that he cheated on you. But also remember, many of our sisters, you also have children whom you don't tell your husbands. And I know a relationship that broke because of that. A man married a girl. They were together for several years. They even produced. This girl said had no child. Out of the blue, the man finds out, my wife had a child before I married her. They separated. I cannot. Can you imagine? Yeah. So those situations, because they are there, we should go back and say, I think the best thing we need to know, what circumstances did lead the people to do this? Two, it may be after you have had this man, but because of what you have said with him, you don't want to know that you don't want him to marry another wife. He goes, he marries legally, he has children, but calamity may come. The mother of these children die, and this man says, no, let me bring my children home. And these children are legal, are legitimate according to Islam. What happens? That is a big thing. Lastly, Kayira, you gave a story that it may be your own sister or your whatever. You find yourselves, then you go. If you have read, I think you have read the book, The Kisses of Fate. The story of the Kisses of Fate is exactly on what we are talking about, where a woman had 2 children, a boy and a girl. Both of them went to America to study. While they are there, from 2 different fathers, while they were there, they made love, and both came to introduce. When they came back, they came to introduce themselves to their parents. I want to show you my mother. Come and to reach. The mother was the same mother. And that play ends with such a kisses turn into kisses of fate. Those of you have read it. You may have read it, or you may have. Me, I participated in drama when I was in senior 4 of that particular play. So then, situations can emerge. The only unfortunate part, if you have
Imam kankwe example endala twalina mulalo waffe yali bamuyitanga Kabano mweko ekyo kyennyini bamuyitanga Kabano yali Munyarwanda kati bweyajja n'amusiramula wangi
Zaidi okyalinamu omuntu era lwaki toyogera mu English please? Imam was on English.
Obawulira bano abantu obawulira kakati omulaalo kitaffe n'amupulira omukazi n'amuwasiza n'amuzaalamu abaana 2 kati naye omulaalo baatugamba nti yayisa bubi omukyalo ono omukyala n'adduka. She never looked back. N'agenda Emityana n'abeera abaana ne bakula ne batuuka mu myaka 10 years ago. Omukazi alisafesinga ajja anoonya abaana be. Kabano yafa dda bbaawe yamuzaalamu abaana. Alisafesinga asanga Musa bw'asanga Musa nga amwaniriza maama twakunoonya watubula tewali kitu. Ng'amugamba kakati aba amugamba naye namuno nyinamu mwannyoko omulala atali Safiina nti aliwa nti nyinako essimu ye nga gyaya kapapula essimu ye ino gikube. Kati Musa ng'akuba essimu. Musa okukuba essimu ng'essimu ya muwala akola naye mu kikuubo amudiridde ddala mu kikuubo w'akolera nga nte Musa alina feelings z'omuwala oyo. Kitegedde ng'amukwana. Namugamba maama ono essimu gy'ompadde nga n'omukwana mbadde mukwana nga njagala fuuke na mukyala wange. Kale ekyo kyayima mukyayogera nti abantu bivaamu ne bifuuka n'ebirala.
So in conclusion, the lessons I have learned from this scenario of Kayira, and I want to thank Kayira for this, because that's what we call social investigations that can bring to right things where we get lessons which could help us direct our future life. And therefore, with all the feelings, the anger that we can have, even when such a thing comes, first develop the humanity in you. Don't go into what happened, the humanity in you. And finally say, supposing you deny this child an opportunity, he goes back, then calamity befalls you, and you find that this very child you rejected is the one who may be of use to you and to your own siblings, your own children. That's where we need to put some levels of humanity and say, this one has happened, but as human beings, we need to make some adjustments to tolerate it. Tolerate, I want to use the word, tolerate the instance, much as you may not totally agree with it, because tolerating something does not necessarily mean that you accept it, but you tolerate it for purposes of humanity. And I want to
Imam, there might be a situation where, because those who are agreeing with the tolerance is you tolerate on one child, on the first child. The problem is, for those who are fearing, the moment you allow this one child, could it open the floodgates of more children coming? I think this was the argument that Ajat Sarah touched on a little bit, but also Laila Kadu was pushing so much.
Whether they come or not, as long as they are not new now, until after you have brought these ones, n'atandika okufunayo babbebi after you have accepted these ones. Naye bwe baba nga bakulu, if the children is bringing bakulu, it is maybe bakulu, he has not reproduced them now, then it helps. But then you also now have the responsibility to guide and help him. If we are basing on the Islamic principles that nayo manyi haji, Allah yatugaana okukola ki? Because nomugamba nti you want me, oyinza okundeetera obuzibu nange nenyenda, kubanga Nabbi Sallama said, if you commit adultery, okay, with somebody's daughter or somebody's wife, they will do it with you as your own children or myself. That's why I want you to guard against this. You should have a sincere discussion. The only problem is human beings, we live in deception. Thank you very much, Kayira, for this. I was supposed to be able to sleep because I have a TV program tomorrow morning and I have just come in.
Much appreciated, Imam. I can't thank you
The reason
enough.
why I was not following, we had a meeting over the cemetery we are buying. I have just come from Hotel Africana late in the night. I reached home almost at midnight. But I am very grateful for what I have had. And such a lessons, we need them to plan for our communities, our families, and the future of our society. Thank you very much.
Barakallahu fikum, Imam.
Sister Wakayira, nkwaniriza.
Gisele Imam arimo arakwakira, uramwumva, ngakwaniriza. Aravuze ngo arakwakiriye, ngo akwaniriza, musubize ngo neyanziza.
Mugambe n'Olufalansa mpuliramu, Oluswayiri alumanyi lw'ompulira, sina problem naye. Merci.
Oh, merci à vous.
Merci.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Imam.
Thank you.
Well, the program is really dragged on. We have 6 minutes to the end of the show. In the studios,
akatalekeka Imam abadde akubiriza abantu awo okubeera careful to tolerate. Taata nze Haji bwe yazaala alina omwana gwe yazaala naye n'agamba mmange nti azadde mwana. Naye omwana naye muganda waffe nga tebamuleetangako ka. Olugezigezi lwange nze nsombereza nengenda ne mvuga eggaali ne muleeta. Ng'alinga mu P3 nze olwo ng'aninga mu P7 senior 1 ndowooza oba senior 2 ne muleeta ne mukuba ewaka ne mugamba maama kumala wuuyo. Kati era muganda wange yakizijukiza nti ojjuka gwe waleeta wumala eka.
Bokoza za mama.
Nedda maama teyalina mutawana gonna, teyalina mutawana era.
Kayira, assalamu alaikum, good night. Kangende nebaka enkya nnyina program ya morning breeze.
Barakallahu fikum, Imam. Now, Zaid, you mentioned something about, well, because now the interesting thing is, and I want to thank my sister Hamida for, one, even persuading her to come on the program because she wasn't sure what sort of, community or conversations we have. And I insisted I do this program, we talk about, like different topics. But interestingly, around just about a year before, about 2 years before our dad died, another sister was introduced in the family. Her name is Nema. She got introduced into the family. Dad, she came home. She comes from a very rich family, which originates from both Rwanda and Burundi. And we are sort of related on my mother's side as well. So she's brought into the family and she came in, she stayed with dad for a little bit and then manages to come to Europe. She's in UK. But I don't know whether she continued to feel sort of either we were of a lower class in comparison to her. No idea. But well, she comes to me one day and says, Kassim, hope you're okay, but yes, I know we are brother and sister, but do you mind if we went for DNA so that I can establish this? So I don't know whether she was feeling like she was high class and then she was being pushed now into a low class. asking me to go for DNA was really very insulting on my person. And I told her point blank there and there, and she cut off communication from the time, and this is when we had just arrived in this country around 2003, 2004. She's been living her life. I mean, she's cut off total communication, and this was one that was introduced to us into the family. But, continued to insist that, well, she wanted us to go for DNA, which I found really, really repulsive, and refused to partake into that. To see her media coming in, and then the way, she's all passionate and sort of think there is finally family here. That in its own way, I think, has had its own side effects. And these are conversations, because sometimes you have to process all of this. You have this big family, but I think exposure and traveling the world and, seeing some of these stories, they are always like big, big stories. So that was one side that never worked. I mean, someone wanting to take me for DNA to be assured of that. It felt a bit weird, but it did happen. And I pray that she finds it in her heart probably to be able to find us before we totally change our minds, because I think, well, it's been long. It's nearly coming to nearly 20 years now since she cut communication. The program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira.
Sheikh Kayira, may I please interject for a little bit, inshallah?
Please do. And I'll take in two more people, and then we will close the program. It looks like we've dragged on too long, but it's very interesting one.
I just wanted to cement Imam Kaso's statement when he said, using the word tolerant. Tolerance. I just want to invite you Sheikh Kayira, to accept your sister that you were asked to do the DNA. She's probably coming from the science background, and she would not believe whatever you said, whatever was said. She would not believe it until she just tests that and find it clear that you are actually blood related. So just tolerate her situation, invite her again, inshallah. Think positively about her, invite her. If you want to do the DNA, please do, because that probably may put her in a situation where she feels comfortable that I'm related to such a big brother. Even if there is that disparity of level or maybe standard, that would be accepted as well, that I may be of a higher status, but here I have a brother probably who is a middle status or something else, inshallah. Please tolerate her, accept her, and she's probably coming from a science background. Thank you so much.
Well, I think it's in the circumstances that this was brought up, because even having the conversation, I think, with my wife at that point was like, DNA okay ruling out that or what? That was the kind of conversation that came around, and it felt a bit weird. And it's a conversation I had with the Giselle as well, when the moment we're having conversations, I just brought it up and said, imagine there was this sister that we had that went down this route. Thank you very much, Sheikh Abdullah Dumba. Boss Lady, I've seen you in a long time. Finally, you appeared here. Maybe we could have you and Mastura, and then we'll close the show. Boss Lady, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello, Boss Lady. Are you at work, unable to speak? Or probably no experience to share on the particular topic?
Sheikh Kayira na Boss Lady wajja.
Naam.
Nange nzikiriza lekana uka Sheikh Dumba. Nze mbadde nzikiriziganya naawe obutakola
DNA. Mariam, Texas.
So,
yes.
Kabanga insult ku bazadde bali abakola ekintu kyabwe ne bamuintroducinga ne babagamba nti bamuzaala, kati gwe bw'okola DNA obanga aba insultinga nti kye baakola baali tebakimanyi.
Yes.
So okay, I agree.
That's a view.
I agree. Sheikh Kayira, you're not the one to do the DNA.
Yes.
The parents were supposed to do that. I agree.
Yes.
I withdraw my request. Thank you.
I found it truly repulsive. I found it a bit weird to ask me to go for DNA when the person had been introduced to that, and we resemble in some funny way. I'm sure one day probably it might come to haunt her, but it's been nearly 20 years, so probably she doesn't care. So maybe, I mean, we just leave it as it is. Mariam, do you have
Hamida waffe akkiriza.
now?
Kasita tufunye Hamida waffe atukkiriza.
No, and I wasn't desperately looking, but the fact that you have someone and who is family, you want them to be there. Boss lady says she's at work, can't talk. Okay, understood. Mastura, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You probably might have the last word. Hello, Ajati Mastura, osirikidde yeyo. Okay, no problem at all. Let me get to Hajara. Hajara, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. NK yatugambye that she's at work and apologize for not being able to speak. Hajara, are you there? You might be your last one. Hajara? One more time. Okay. Barakallahu fikum. 33 minutes past 10 o'clock. It's been a very, very long night, but very interesting. And I thank you very much for being part of this conversation. I'm sure.
Keke ekibuuzo.
Yes.
Oba inabeera topic ndala naye nga ekibuuzo. Who suffers the most? Omwana gwe baleese mu family. Ne bamugya mu family eri. Yasinga okusafaringa oba for example oba ono obuswavu oba bubeera ku andi abasinze okukola
because I think for the person who is getting introduced to the family, it depends what the circumstances are. Were they the ones pushing? Was it the mother, for instance, in most cases, who has decided at the very last point, I have to take you to your family so that you can be part of your family? Are you, the child, the one pushing your parents to take you there? So then, so it starts from there. Once you've come in, the kind of reception you receive will determine now whether you're going to suffer or not. Because there are places where you're going to come, like Hamida's case now. Our family, the way we are, alhamdulillah, most people are just that very welcoming. And especially something someone mentioned, I can't remember who did in the conversation, who was saying, if someone comes in and they are not that, that desperate, or they're not that poor, then I think it answers the issue, the issues concerning whether they are going to be harmed in their coming or not. Because if the transition has been smooth, because there are people as well, if you're going to break such news, which will be heartbreaking to the person, you want to be able to do it in such a way that would be, slowly brought in, to that. So it is a process. It is a process. I think Hajara here says in most cases, the child is the one pushing because they feel lost. Yeah, so they might want to be a part of the family. If they come in and they've really pushed for that, you can be assured. 2 points to make before I close tonight's conversation. One, I'm sure you've seen the trending news. Pastor Wijingo has been shot. I can't confirm dead, but he was taken to Mulago. He was shot on his way home in Uganda. And importantly for this particular platform, after the death of Sheikh Sulaiman Ismail Kata, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. Of course, our Wednesday slot has been empty, or has been sort of pleading, and unsurprisingly, alhamdulillah, we've got a replacement for Sheikh Kata for the Wednesdays, and none other than another Mitiana man, Sheikh or Dr. Hafid Warusimbi. And he will be the one who is taking over that particular element. Riyadh Salihin every Wednesdays with Sheikh Chiyinji, actually Sheikh Chiyinji, but we'll also be getting Sheikh Abdul Hafiz Warusimbi. Sheikh Hafiz Warusimbi is for 4th January. That will be on Thursday, not Wednesday. So the replacement for Sheikh Nkata, correction there, is Sheikh Kassim Kayira, another very knowledgeable, very interesting Sheikh, a person that I can proudly say I went to school with. So it's been a very beautiful night. I thank you again for another very beautiful, performance tonight. thanks very much to my sister Hamida for making the time, for agreeing to be interrogated. I'm sure you do not live tonight in the same way. You've seen the kind of people we hang out with. This is a conversation that takes place every Tuesday, 8 p.m. UK time. That would be 9 p.m. Luxembourg time, inshallah. And I thank you very much for being part of the conversation, for all your contributions, for all your points, and hope to see you again next week, inshallah, same time, same place. The program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. We've been live on 75 W Radio, live on Ummah Connected on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. How do we access the Wednesday program? Same login issue, Ummah Connected, and I'll be sharing that on our Newcastle platforms, JP, as well as on the other platforms. You are actually on the UMC main platform that is flagged there. So Wednesdays, Sheikh Kassim Kayira, another brilliant brain. Thank you very much. And Hamida is showing off her Uganda now. Surabulungi is the word. Barakallahu fikum. I thank you very much and hope to see you again next week, inshallah. Thank you for making the time, and I hope we will be able to be here same time with another very interesting topic. Do not miss. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi